Welcome to another episode of Aligned and Abundant. On today's episode, I have a very special guest. Her name is Kristen Shea. She is a spiritual coach, quantum healer, and the creator of Break Free, a method that helps people reclaim their voice, liberate their identity, and rise into visibility and purpose. I happened to come across her on Instagram and instantly fell in love with all of the messages that she was sharing. In particular, she was sharing a conversation that I often have or visualize having with my spirit guides in regards to, did I really sign up for this as part of my soul contract? And she was just so cute and funny with how she explained that thought that I said, I have to reach out to this woman and I have to know more about her. And so, with pleasure, welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to learn more about you as well.
Yes. So, a little bit about me. I have always been interested in spirituality. I grew up with a cousin who was a psychic medium and it was generational. So, we kind of always talked about spiritual things in regards to what goes on the other side and all of that. And I just became more and more interested. So, as I've gotten older, I've taken courses in mediumship. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I work with the archangels. So I have just put myself out there as far as learning as much as I possibly can in terms of the spiritual side of things. And then recently I took an interest in learning about quantum leaping.
Mhm.
And so I am just looking to surround myself with like minded people and just talk about this thing called life and then all it comes with. So that's a little bit about myself. I was a middle school English teacher for 19 years, and I'm transitioning into life coach and leading spiritual workshops, both in person and online.
That's
Social
so cool.
media is not the easiest thing for me. You look like you have it under control, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
So please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on making the leap from a teacher or kind of that standard typical corporate type career into the spiritual world, because I feel like that's one of the hardest leaps to navigate, to totally walk behind that. And I feel like a lot of the collective right now is struggling with that. So that's amazing that you did that.
Thank you
Congrats.
so much. Honestly, I'm trying to be a role model for others that are afraid to take the leap. But I also want to speak to the fact that I think that if you continue to avoid taking the leap, the universe is like, we're going to give you a nice little shove with a gentle landing, but we're going to make sure you start doing what it is that we need you to do to serve the collective.
Totally. The longer we stay on the path that isn't meant for us, the more difficult and like the more tower moments and just this constriction happens until we move into where we're meant to be. But it's like, whew, it's still a hard leap to make.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I have a fairly similar story in the sense that about a year and a half ago is when I actually made the leap to leave my corporate background, corporate life behind. And was unknowingly actually moving into more of a spiritual journey. So I had been spiritual my whole life growing up, very much as a child. Like I was always talking to the trees and convening with nature and, making like little herbal concoctions. And then at some point, probably I would say like in my teenage years, I kind of drifted out of it a little bit. And I was very like surface level spiritual. Like I was manifesting a little bit. I would go to yoga, but it was very, very surface level. And it wasn't until like my late 20s that I started to like pick that back up again. But I still kept it compartmentalized because I had a very corporate life. So my spiritualness, my woo-woo-ness was all like hidden and compartmentalized. Even from like my family and friends, like everybody knew the surface level, but not the deepness of it. And I was always, my gifts have always been online, but I didn't know that. Like I didn't understand them.
Mhm.
So I would get all of these like psychic intuitive hits during conversations and not totally understand what I was getting. Or I could always see how something was going to work out. Like someone would come to me with an idea and I'd be like, oh, well, that probably won't work because of XYZ. And it wasn't always received well because they would think I was being like negative or so. A lot of times I would shut my gifts down or I would just stay silent about them, keep them to myself. And then about a year and a half ago, I found myself back in this narcissistic dynamic I had been in, and it had been a repeating cycle in my life. I was very codependent, so stuck in people pleasing. and really just silencing like who I was. And I knew I had to leave, but I had like no backup plan. I didn't know what I would do after because this dynamic meant that I was walking away from essentially my entire family, my friends, including my career, the business I had been helping to build. Like I was walking away from everything. And I didn't have a financial safety net or any security or any, and this is like all so divinely planned because if I had had that, I would have just like chilled out and relaxed.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't. So it took me on that like super deep spiritual journey when you have no choice but to go really deep within. And so I started on that journey, and March 27th of last year, so of 2024, was the first time I ever posted on social media. And I was so afraid to do it. And I posted a channeled message, which was even scarier to put out there. And I was like so mortified because I was like, oh, I'm going from a successful corporate executive to a TikTok psychic. Like, how embarrassing. All these people are going to see me. So I just had to like show up through that process, and it was really, really uncomfortable. And then my guides kept, telling me in my meditations, share, share, share. And I was like, I don't understand what the point of this is. Because to me, I didn't think the path that I'm on right now or the ability to be the healer, helper, guide I wanted to be was like super available or could provide for me financially versus what I was used to in the corporate world. And so that was obviously a limiting belief. So I kept posting, I kept showing up. And through that process, my gifts opened up more because I gave them space to exist. And it's turned into a beautiful spiritual business, a beautiful life that I live now. And now I get to like do the things that I absolutely love, which is help people figure out who they are, what they're here to share, how to show up on social. Because it is becoming yourself and then being yourself on those platforms is hard.
I am so glad that you're speaking to all of this because literally my spirit guides have been directing me to go on TikTok and show myself. And I'm like, if this isn't a divine sign right
Yes.
here on my doorstep, I don't know what it is. Because I was like, I don't even go on TikTok. Like, I don't even know how to work TikTok. Like, I kind of do a little bit, but not really. So they have been like, you have to do this. So it's really truly inspiring to hear one that you took the brave leap of putting yourself out there because it had to have been so scary because you're leaving behind everything that you knew. And
Yeah,
sometimes we would rather stay in an uncomfortable situation because it's safe and familiar versus branching out and fully expanding and allowing the universe to guide us to all of the infinite possibilities that are really truly there already, just waiting for us to match the frequency. And
literally.
so I applaud you for taking that brave first step and then all of the aligned steps afterwards that have led you to where you are currently today. It's really, truly beautiful and inspiring.
Thank you. Just know that it was a little bit involuntary in some ways. Like my guides had like constricted me so much that there was almost like no option not to do that. So like I had said, I'd left with no backup plan. I had like so I left December 29th of 2023, and I had like 2 weeks to figure out how I'm going to have an income coming in.
Uh-huh.
And in that process, I kept getting this message, share your channel messages on TikTok, share your channel messages. And it was very specific about TikTok, which is interesting that yours are
Yeah.
about that too. And I kept fighting it. I kept fighting it. And in this moment, I was a publicist in my previous corporate life. And I loved being a publicist because I was behind the scenes. I was hidden. I was always putting someone else in the spotlight and showcasing their gifts. And so I was trying to continue with that. I was trying, I was applying for jobs, trying to take PR clients, all of these things. And I was just scraping by, and I kept getting these messages, post, post, post. And the reason I posted on March 27th is that week I had gotten a message in my meditation, and it was like, you need to post, like you're postponing everything by avoiding this. And all of a sudden, all my clients that I had stopped paying their invoices. They weren't replying to emails. All the leads I had drawn up, like all the job offers, everything stopped. It was silent. And I was in a pure panic because I had rent due, bills due, and like 3 or 4 days, and like a significant amount, and
Mhm.
terrified. And so I'm in prayer. I'm like, God, help me, like guides, angels, I'm calling in all the reinforcements, like somebody help me. And the answer was post your channel messages. And I was like, honestly, I was kind of upset because I was like, how dare you? Like, that's not helpful right now. Like I need like the action that's going to bring in my rent money by Monday morning. So I was in full panic. And the rest of that day, I just kind of sat there like, why are they harping on this? And I remember just being like, I will post my channeled messages once I get my life together. Who am I to share any information when my life is not together, when I'm in this place, right? And I think that's like a really common thing that people think of, like, you have to have healed or ascended or reached a certain level before you can share whatever. And that's certainly where I was stuck. But later that day, I posted my channeled message, and all of a sudden, all my clients within 3 hours paid all their invoices. All the emails were flowing again. The leads were flowing. Like, isn't that why? Like, it was all so divinely orchestrated to push me into my path because I had been avoiding it at like all costs.
100%. There is no doubt in my mind that they were like, we're going to make you do this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally. Totally. They're like, you've ignored this message for long enough.
Yeah. So then tell me what happened. So you made your first post,
Yeah. So
and what
I
was the result?
the first post, I don't even remember, but I remember it was like maybe a comment, maybe there
Huh.
was, it wasn't like it was like taking off,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I remember just being in a lot of fear because I knew all the people from my previous life were seeing this, and I was so mortified. I'm like, they are gonna think that I have like
Lost
totally
your mind.
lost it. Yeah, like yeah, they're gonna be filing like papers to like put me in a hospital or something. But my guides were like, keep posting, keep posting. So I'm like, if you keep paying my bills, I'll keep posting. Like, I'll keep showing up as long as you promise to pay my bills. Cause that's where I was in so much scarcity at that time, like so much fear. And so I keep posting, keep posting. A couple weeks later, I get the message, you need to start offering personal readings. And I was like, absolutely not. Not doing that. I've never done a personal reading before. I had like tried to practice with one of my best girlfriends, but I knew her whole life. So it was like, how could I know if what's coming in through the channel versus, my ego? And so I was like, I'm not doing that. And then the same thing happened again. All my clients stopped paying, everything pulled back. And I was just like, okay, I know this game. I know this game. And so I went back into meditation and I was like, what do you want me to do? And it was share your channel messages, offer the personal readings for $44.
Mm.
And then my ego was like, $44. You want me to put all like, what? This is like, you're trying to embarrass me and humble me more in front of like the corporate world or whatever. Like this, I don't know. I always say like from corporate executive to like $44 TikTok psychic. It felt like I was begging for money, I guess. But I did do it. Everything flowed again. Everything just started to come back through. And what's interesting is that I didn't think anyone was going to book with me because I maybe had 100 followers and they were probably like, in my mind, a lot of bots. My videos weren't really taking off. I didn't have an audience. And I was like, what is the point of doing this? I just threw up my Cash App link and a Calendly link, no tracking system, no boundaries on my calendar because I didn't think anyone was going to book. Within the first 2 days, I had over 70 people book with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a boot camp, like a spiritual boot camp, because they all book. And I'm like, okay. And then I had no systems in place to know who had paid, who hadn't paid, no boundaries on my calendar. So I had like 15-hour days
Oh my gosh.
while still doing my PR stuff. So it was like such a wild time. Then it came to the point where it was like, now I have to do these readings, which was just as terrifying as posting because I'm like, what if nothing comes through? What if what I'm saying, what if I am freaking crazy? What if I'm in like, honestly, there are times where I'd be like, am I in a spiritual psychosis? Like, am I crazy? There's
Right.
no proof or validation. And so I was terrified, but I had my first reading. And so I finally just said to myself, like, you have to do this if you want your bills paid. Like, we got to keep following the instructions. And I finally was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. Worst case scenario, I'm wrong and I'm crazy. I'll refund the money and I'll be embarrassed, but like, I'll get over it, like
Mhm.
move on. And my first readings went amazing, and it was spot on. So it was like very validating for me that I was like, okay, then I'm not making this up. Like this is real.
Wow.
It was an intense.
Honestly, that's so amazing. And the fact that you had to just continue listening because of the situation that you were put in, like it's like sink or swim. Like you
Really.
had no choice. And the
Yeah.
only way to get like the life raft was to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like spiritual blackmail. They're like, we are going to hold you hostage.
Really, that's what it felt like. I remember just feeling I will do whatever you want me to do because I was in so much scarcity. And it took a few weeks for me to change that to the point where I was like, oh, I love this because I was just in so much survival mode that it was like, I literally felt like I was being taking breadcrumbs. Like, I'll do the thing if you give me that. Like, we were like, God and I are like bartering back and forth.
Well, I love that you also mentioned the fact that it's almost like you surrendered, right? You said, I need help.
Mhm.
What is it that you want me to do? And I feel like that is usually the divine time when they step in and they literally put the breadcrumbs for you to follow and the trail leading you in the right path. And it truly is up to you if you decide to do it or not do it. And then working through that scarcity mindset and the limiting beliefs that we have placed upon ourselves, whether it's from our own upbringing or someone else's influence, it's
Yeah.
super important to come to the realization that you do totally have control of your life and what you want to put out there and who you want to resonate with. And I do believe that when you are more aligned, the right people come to you. So the fact that you took the chance, and I get it, like you're like $44, what am I doing? This is embarrassing. But the fact that you were answered with 70 within days is
Yeah.
true confirmation that you absolutely did the right thing.
Yeah, yeah, it was a wild, wild ride. I love sharing that story because I think it's also important for people to understand how quick things can change.
Yes.
Like things can within a month, my whole life changed and I was put on a totally different trajectory and was so provided for, and I didn't have to be in that like scraping by scarcity piece. But that also like 9 times out of 10, in order to have that financial breakthrough, it's going to come from an action that has nothing to do with money, right? Like I'm always telling clients that because a lot of times their guides will be like, oh, you need to do XYZ. And they're like, how does that make sense? And I'm like, it clears a money block or something that you have, or it's aligning you to your path. There's a reason. But in my mind back then, I was like, oh, I need to generate leads. I need to be calling and emailing and like figuring out how to get people to pay their invoices. Like that's where I wanted to spend my time. But the most effective thing I could do was the thing that made absolutely no sense, which was post the channeled messages. And even today, like it's always my reminder if I'm launching something or, if there is a dip in revenue or something changes, it's always a reflection of my inner work. It has nothing to do with those quote unquote actions I need to take in my business. It's like within me. And honestly, what guidance am I ignoring usually is the answer.
Mm-hmm. And to speak to that, it's literally like a shift in mindset because when you hear the word abundance, I think most people associate it with money. And then you
Mhm.
also have those limiting beliefs of people who have money are evil, they're irresponsible, they're selfish, they're greedy. So it's a matter of letting all of these things go. And I have witnessed that on coaching calls and whatnot, people are like, but how do I make the money? But how do I make the money? You nailed it on the head because it's not about logically making the money. It is finding the abundance within. It is being joyful in what you're currently offering, being grateful for what you currently have. And then because you're shifting that vibration, then the aligned opportunities come your way. So, yes, people want to think their way into money and sales and business strategies. And it takes a strong individual, I think, and someone who's interested in seeking knowledge to really discover what you just shared. Do you know what I mean? Like,
100%. And it took, like I said, if my guides hadn't walked me through this process, because I had heard about that, right? Like I had done a lot of mindset work and abundance work and the belief systems, but I still was not fully connected to how much the divine can intervene and how, like, even my belief system of the fact that like money doesn't come from clients for me, it comes from God. It might flow through clients. But if someone's needing to work with me, if I'm meant to be on their path, God, source, spirit is making sure that they're provided for to work with me, which makes me provided for. But all of that, like I had to go through that whole process to be able to switch to that mindset. And even now, like when things come up, it's still my first reaction is like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm an Aries rising. So I'm all about action. Like I love to move, move, move. So even now when something I feel like I'm stuck or something's going on, my first thing is like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to see what actions I can take. And it's always immediately like, no, you need to go into meditation or you need to figure out like what's not good here. What are you ignoring? What are you avoiding? What am I not loving about myself or what's happening? Because that's always going to be the answer to all forms of like that abundant timeline.
and it's so true because honestly, the answers are within the stillness. So when you get quiet and you connect to source, that is truly when you will find the answers. You can sit down and think your way through anything that you want, make the pro con list, reach out to all the people, but you really have to go within yourself and sit down and connect to source. So it's funny because when I meditate, I literally sit down on the floor against my bed and I like visualize that I'm like a plug and I'm like plugging into source. And then you just shift and your whole body relaxes. And you might not get the answers right away, but the more that you practice, the easier it is for you to hear the messages that are coming through.
Yeah.
So, would you say that you were born with like a gift to commune with, your team, your spirit team, or is that like a tool that you picked up along the way?
I was definitely born with it, but I shut it off for so many reasons and didn't understand it. Like when I was little, the birds always talked. Like we had conversations. Like they were always talking to me. Even my mom would tell me from like 2 years old, I would wake up from a nap and I'd be like, oh, I was talking to the birds. And to me, it was a full conversation. I was always very drawn to like the earth elements, connecting with the animal kingdom, trees. And my gifts were always there, and I always just understood. I guess that's where like that old soul word comes from, where you just kind of have like this understanding of the world in a way, and you kind of know what's going on, even as much as you don't. And I had that, but it wasn't like fostered in the environment that I was in. Nobody really understood it or knew what to do with it. Like my mom is super psychic, but she's only somewhat tapped into her gifts. Like, it comes across like in a mom way, like, oh, mother's intuition. But I'm like, no,
Uh-huh.
you just aren't tapping in. But nobody really knew what to do with it. And so I eventually shut it down because I would be very misunderstood or ostracized in a lot of ways. And I felt from a very young age already didn't fit in society. So it wasn't until much later in life that I started being able to tap into them in a productive way. Like I would get intuitive downloads and all of these insights, and I would be channeling, but I could never do it like intentionally. It would come in a conversation with someone, and then sometimes I would say the thing that I was channeling and it would not get a good reaction because a lot of times I was reflecting a shadow to them that I wasn't even like aware of. And so I shut them down even more. But then eventually, when I started just creating space for them and not having to be like, oh, they're right, they're wrong, and just allowing them to come in and exist however they existed, it started to open more. But when they really opened up is when I started to share them publicly because I mean, those 70 appointments were also like a spiritual boot camp of like all my gifts all at the same time.
I can
Um,
imagine.
but yeah, I think, yeah, born with it for sure. And then it was programmed out of me and then remembered.
I love that. And that brings me to the thought that everything that we already need to know is already there within us. It is coming back to the remembering and realizing that there is a lot of programming out in the world. There's a lot of things that society wants us to believe or think or feel or stuff down. And,
Yeah.
so it's really wild that there are so many people out there that I feel are so unaware of all of the possibilities and opportunities and connections that are really right here for them. And
Mhm.
that's why I do love to share this work because the more people that you can awaken to their own inner strength, their own intuitiveness, connect them to their spiritual team, the
Yeah.
better it is for the collective. Like when someone heals, we're healing the collective. So it's a beautiful thing for light workers to have their voices heard.
So it's so important, so important. And the thing is, no one has like what I found anyways is that no one has a place to practice their gifts or to even like create a space that feels safe enough to like let them come in. So most people don't know what to do even when they are getting these gifts or this information. Like they have no idea what to do with it. I know I didn't. And I actually ended up creating like a community where we meet on Sundays on Zoom so everyone can practice. And then I'm just there. I help people with what's coming through or how to tap in because you are your most powerful when you're tapped into your intuition. But we've been ignoring it for so long that we don't even realize what is our intuition versus our thoughts versus channel or whatever else. And it's really cool to watch people because their lives change simply by making that intuitive connection. Like it is such a ripple effect. And it's such a, I want to say easy or simple thing we can do, but it's also like the hardest.
I think it's the hardest to trust. And I think that once you trust, it is really so simple and so easy. I do
Yeah.
also believe that when you are in a community where you feel safe, held, and supported, it's so much easier to tune into that because you feel seen, right? You
Yeah.
feel seen, you feel heard, you feel understood. And I feel like that is so important. And I love that you offered a community where you could do that with people.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see someone like they're like, I'm not really sure. I was getting this. And they're like so afraid to put it out there. Then the other person's like, oh my gosh, yes, that means blah, blah, blah. And they're like, and it's like everything changes in that moment because you can trust everything you've been getting, which then I think also helps people navigate like the really difficult decisions in life that they have to make. Or like when I was at that crossroads, refusing to post messages and trying to stay corporate and all of those things, like it helps you navigate those decisions because you're like, oh, I can trust the information that's coming in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Why did you feel like you had to leave corporate? Were you unhappy? Was spirit just really in your ear about it? And share what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. It was a whole gamut of things. So I had always been in the corporate world in some capacity.
Mhm.
And at 32, I woke up one day and I was just like, this is not for me. This is not the life I'm meant to be living. I felt super limited, super small. I was living in New Hampshire at the time. And I decided to hit the reset button on my life. So I hit reset. I sold everything I owned. I put my dog in the car. We went across the country, like total reset, restart. And what I did was I started curating life from what I thought I wanted, but I didn't know who I was. So I was honestly curating it like it was like an Instagram feed, right? 2020 is like the time when influencers were coming up and we're seeing like this pretty aesthetic. So I was like, what do I want to be and how do I want to be perceived in the world versus who am I? So I recreated this life. And 5 years later, at 37, I found myself in this space where I was just like, I'm miserable again. Like, I'm not living. I just had this calling. Like, I knew I wasn't living my purpose. I knew that I was not, like, I knew I was here for something more, but I knew I was not even tapping into my potential, tapping into anything. I felt miserable by it. My gifts were more and more online. And so I could see through more and more. So the corporate world stopped resonating with me even more. And honestly, if I had thought it was possible to hone all of my gifts and start a spiritual business that could support me financially in a shorter time frame, I would have done it years ago. I didn't think like everything in my mind was like it'll take years for me to get my gifts to the point they need to be. It'll take years to build a business that supports me financially. It'll take all of these things. And so I kind of like just never did it. I also was really attached to the outside perception of me. I wanted to be seen as successful. That was like really important to me. So there was a lot of insecurities about stepping into a path that wouldn't be traditionally viewed as successful. And so at the same time, I was also in this really uncomfortable narcissistic dynamic that had been at play for cycles and cycles and cycles. So I'm like, oh, I hit reset and I'm right back where I was, maybe in a different state, maybe with different people, but I'm like in the same thing. Here we go again.
Yep.
I knew that I needed to leave that dynamic. And I knew in doing that, it meant like leaving my career, leaving everything. It was like a decision where I had to like let it all go. And in that moment, I was like, I know I don't want to go work for someone else. I know I want to work for myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was still super, super lost. But I started identity work at that point because I was like, I have no idea who I even am. Like I was trying to create a personal brand and put myself out there as like an independent publicist to get clients, just to get by.
Right.
Like PR was never going to be the long game for me. I just needed to get by financially. And in doing this personal branding exercise, when I had been in the PR world, I didn't like the way PR did. PR was all about perception. How do you want to be perceived by the world and telling stories from that lens and showing up in a very curated fashion. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to figure out who I am and I want to be authentic, but I don't know how to because I don't know who I am. So I went on like a deep identity journey. And through that is where I was like, oh, I can never go back to corporate like ever again. I've like crossed that threshold. But I wanted to. Even after I left, I was still trying to like apply for jobs. I was just in scarcity. So I was like, whatever will pay the bills, you know?
I can totally relate to that. I have been, like I said, a school teacher for 19 years. And I think about 9 or 10 years in, I felt like I was kind of done. But it paid the bills and it's what I thought I was supposed to keep doing because I mean, let's face it, I wanted to be a school teacher ever since I was 5 years old, imagining that I was grading papers and whatnot. So, yeah, like it comes with figuring out who you are. And honestly, even now that I've taken the leap, there's definitely still things that I have not figured out yet. But I think that with the unfolding of following the breadcrumbs, the path will reveal itself. You just have to have the courage to step forward. And I think it's also equally important to recognize what you don't want to do so that can lead you into the path that is more aligned for you.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon what you said with success, right?
Yeah.
The perception of how other people define success. Really, we grow up thinking success is money, fancy cars, a house, kids, all of these things. But really, success now to me is being happy at the end of the night, putting my head down on my pillow and not worrying about regrets and, could I have done more? It's just finding happiness and joy within my days. That is truly success because you can be the richest person in the world and still be miserable and unhappy. You can be the
Yeah.
poorest person, but be the happiest person. It really is where you're at on your soul's lesson, like on different soul lessons that you are overcoming.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like there's always time to grow and change. Like I might think that, all right, and I would never think this because I know it's not true, but like, oh, I'm at the top of my evolution, and then there's nothing more for me to do. But then no, like spirit's like, nah, next level.
Yeah. They're like unlock a new path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, the perception of success in society is wild, and it was one I wanted so badly to be viewed as successful. Like a lot of my self-worth was attached to that. So it was also really that was part of the identity crisis, I think, in that whole period of the financial struggle and leaving that path behind was like all of a sudden everything I had been up until that point was no longer true. I mean, it really wasn't. It never was me. I was like a shell of a person living what I thought I should. But I agree, like success for me is peace. Like just feeling peaceful in my life, feeling fulfilled, feeling very connected to God, to source, to spirit, to like that divine connection. And like you're saying, the joy and like just feeling good at the end of the day. That's success. And we chase so much of these outside perceptions of what other people think success is, even on social media, like the curation of what's being shared or how many followers people have or like all of that it's constantly playing into our subconscious.
Oh, 100%. They actually say going on social media can lead to like anxiety and depression because you have such a false sense of who these people are, and people really do crave authenticity. And so when you can make those genuine connections, that is really going to sell anything. Like it doesn't matter what the dollar amount is because people want to buy your energy, they want to buy the connection with you as a person. And
Right.
so it's very important to be able to find out who you are because then you are truly allowing yourself to be the gift to the world. And we all came with a purpose. We're all here for a reason. There's not a single soul that is incarnated right now that doesn't have a purpose, a reason, and a gift to be here. And so it is a matter of figuring that out.
1,000%. And you're hitting on like a really important part of being authentic to who you are. Like I've worked with some creators who have millions of followers, but they curated like a false identity and not on purpose, right? It was all for approval, acceptance, to not be ridiculed and judged. And they end up being so trapped by it because they'll be afraid to leave their house because what if people see who I really am? What if my followers see me at the airport and I'm not who I portrayed myself to be? I don't have it all together. And a lot of them are struggling with their abundance. Like they can't figure out a financial secure revenue stream or income for themselves because they're not in alignment. And it's really hard to come back from that. So it's like, I always say when I'm posting on social, like my followers and me, we're discovering who I am in real time. We're on the same journey together,
Yep.
discovering this because more of me unfolds every day. Um,
100%.
and we just have to allow ourselves to show up in our process, whatever it is. And if we change, like if they're your people, they're going to change with you. They're going to be on that journey.
Exactly. And you're inspiring each other and you're encouraging each other to change because no one stays the same. Like, I am not the same person that I was last year. I am not the same person that I was a month ago. I might not be the same person that I was yesterday because we are in a constant state of flow and growth.
Yeah.
So, to expect anyone to stay the same is really kind of silly because that's what life is all about is growing. And each day that we have available to us is really an opportunity to change and evolve. No one wants to be stagnant. Do you know what I mean? So we have to embrace the opportunities that come our way. And to go back to another point that you made, I do believe that if you don't figure out life's lessons in the scenario that is presented or the relationship that is presented and you step away, but you still don't learn the lesson, I can definitely speak to this. The universe puts you right back into that with different people, maybe a different location, but until you get it, or you're brave enough to walk away, you're brave enough to put up boundaries,
Yeah.
it will keep coming back until you get it. It's like a test, you know?
You're like, okay, you didn't get it that time. We're just gonna put you right back in. And yeah, it does. It shows up. It shows up more and more and more. And I think the more you're not getting it or ignoring it or whatever it is, it's the more uncomfortable each of those scenarios gets until you're in a place where you are just squeezed and constricted so much that like you almost have no choice but to change and change without like knowing where you're going.
100%. Yeah. And I could totally speak to that. Like I said, I had wanted to leave teaching for a while, and there were opportunities that I tried out and whatnot, but financially, like teaching just made the most sense
Yeah.
as compared to starting new and working my way up. But I'm at a point now where it's like, I don't want to feel like I'm missing out on something. Like I have more to say, I have more to do on a bigger platform than the extent of my 70 students. You know what I mean? I want to make a difference in the world, and with that I have to overcome the fear of putting my voice out there, of making the TikTok videos, etc. You know what I mean? Like the universe is conspiring with me, like the right advertisements come along, the right tools come along, the right people come along, and it's like, all right, just listen
Yeah.
and just do the thing, you know?
Yeah, it's always so simple and so hard because it's like the answer
Yeah.
is simple, do the thing. And then it's like what we have to overcome to finally do the thing, but we're always the only one in our way.
100%. And I also believe that we're also the only one who can truly support ourselves at the end of the day. You can have the most loving and caring, supportive family, but at the end of the day, you are the only person responsible for you. So the choice is up to you. And if you have to hurt someone's feelings along the way, like that might not be your intent, but sometimes it has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point because I think that's part of probably one of the hardest things that in any path you have to realize, but especially the spiritual path is generally I find a lot of people on the spiritual path have been in some type of a codependent dynamic and not necessarily narcissistic, but have been in that people pleasing circus. Or even if you're just in the corporate world or the teaching world, you can only say certain things, you can only do certain things. And it's like you want to keep everyone happy. And the best thing for everybody is for you to speak your truth, even if it's not what they want to hear. And so they may not be happy about it, but like you're honoring yourself and them. It's for everyone's good. And a lot of people feel selfish by doing that.
It truly is for everyone's good, because not only are you role modeling that it is possible to step out and find your truth, but also if someone has to face their shadow side, you're also gifting them that opportunity. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? To grow. And it actually made me think of, do you remember the movie Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead by any chance?
I do remember that.
Where she's like, Christina Applegate always had to respond right on top of that, Rose. Like that's where we get stuck in, you know?
Totally.
With the people pleasing. Like I have to fit into this mold and do XYZ, even though I might know better, or I want to do it differently, or I know it'll work better this way. It's like we get stuck,
In that
and then
middle.
it's hard to fight the current. It's hard to put your head above the water and go a different way.
It is. And it's like so much of it is also designed or where we've attached it to our financial security. So you better not speak up at work. You better not go against what everybody's saying, like that part. And then even within your family, I feel like on some level, we're all just looking for peace and we associate silence with peace. And it's not, silence might keep the peace for everybody else, but it is going to eat you alive inside. So you might have quiet or calm in your home, but what's going on the inside, like silence does not equate peace. It's the exact opposite.
100% agree with you. And silence can also lead to anxiety, which then leads to dis-ease, literal disease in your body. So it's super important that you curate relationships where you can speak your truth and you can be your most authentic self, even if that means being totally vulnerable in
Yeah.
the words that you share with others. And I always say to the people in my life personally that, like, I want deep conversations. I don't want surface level fluff. Like save that for like the Dunkin' Donuts line. You know what I mean? Like You want to have genuine, real connections with people because at the end of the day, we're all souls. We're all here for a purpose and a reason. And it just makes you feel good when you can connect to people. Now, granted, not everyone is on the same level, obviously, or else why would we be here, right? We're in like different grades at our school of life, but it's
Yeah.
important to continue to recognize where you're at and be open and willing to change. And sometimes you have to clear out your vessel by releasing your limiting beliefs, maybe like any karmic baggage that you're holding. You have to do a lot of deep shadow work. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And connect to source.
Yeah, it's so true. It's to be yourself and be authentic is the greatest gift in the world, but it's like going through that journey to clear out past life trauma, whatever energetics you're holding in your body that make your nervous system react. Like there's so many levels and layers to it. And then of course the physical, tangible shadow work. So many layers to it. But when you get there, everything in life is easy, or easier, I should say, because your authenticity brings in everything, right? Like it attracts your people, your clients, your community. And so, yeah, you might clean out some people along the way that are, not in alignment with you. But when you align to yourself, even it shifts the alignment in every area of your life.
100%. And you might be sad at first that those people are no longer in your life or that you have a different job, different environment. But when you call in your new people, your new tribe, it just feels so much more aligned.
Mhm.
And I also want to speak to, I just recently, spirit is also like breath work, somatic breath work. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. You know what I mean? And then opportunities kept coming across my path. And then finally, I got into a program where I work with someone who does breath work on a regular basis. And I just went to a retreat last week and I did a breathwork session. And I swear I released something that I have been carrying
Yeah.
for so long, and it
Wow.
was just the hugest weight off my shoulders. I literally just started crying, and I wanted to hug I did hug the facilitator after, but like it was just amazing because you don't realize what you're carrying, or you might be aware of it, but you need to take the steps to
Yeah.
release that so
Mhm.
that new can come in. You can replace those limiting beliefs, the energetic connections, I'm sure, I don't want to speak for you, but reincarnation and living past lives and all of that. Like, you might have carried something in from another life that hasn't energetically been released yet. So it's important to do the work because we are constantly evolving. And the more that you just said, I call it the hamster wheel, and you just glide along every day, like you're not going to grow. You have to be brave. And sometimes also you have to let go of what you thought your life was going to be. Like I thought I was going to be a school teacher, become an administrator, make tons of money, open my own business with that said money, and then just lead this life of luxury. And I just never got the admin job, no matter how many interviews I was on. And it's probably because that's not where I was meant to be. So now, yes, I have all the student loan debt. Thank you. But I have no interest to be an admin because
Yeah.
that's just not where I'm at. I think I'll always be a teacher at heart. And at first, I went through an anger stage where I was like, screw teaching. I'm not going to do that anymore. But then I came to the realization that I will always be a teacher. It just might not be in the same way that it used to be. And I have to honor and love the fact that I have all of that experience
Yeah.
behind me. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Absolutely. It is detaching from what we thought because, I mean, also we've been programmed to think of what's possible for us, right? Like even from the Disney movies showing us about how our romantic life is going to go and our role in the house and all of those things. I mean, I certainly did not think that I would find myself at 37 years old, like single, jobless, having no idea who I am in any capacity. Like that was a total that kept me actually stuck though for a long time because I was like, I don't want to start over at 37. Like everyone else has it all together. I want to have it all together. Like that will keep you stuck sometimes, the fear of just starting over in and of itself. And yeah, like your teaching experience, it serves you. My corporate, it serves us, like in
Right.
how we're meant to show up and share with the collective. Like even though we probably stayed in those experiences longer than we were meant to, it like served us in a way for whatever we're preparing to do.
100%, because I have so many experiences that I can reflect on and feel the love between, me and my colleagues, me and my students, inspiration by the principals that I had or the vice principals that I had. And, it truly is a gift to be an educator because you are making such a difference. So I will always value the experiences that I had. It's just, I think that when you get to the point where the universe and your angels are like, it's time to move on, and you're like, but no, I don't want to do the work. Like, I'd rather just sit here and Netflix and chill versus go out for the jog, like,
Really? I bet your teaching background makes you so good at being able to take information and like break it down into ways that people can like receive it and understand it. I bet that's super valuable in your practice.
that is true. And the capability also to multitask and have like seven conversations at once. I can definitely multitask, and that is a good thing for sure. Tell me a little bit about how you feel currently about co-creating the life that you want. How do you curate your
Yeah.
day? And what does your ideal day look like for you?
Yeah, it changes all the time. One thing that's always remained is I like a slow, quiet morning. That's really important to me, especially after having to like get up and go somewhere for so long and be on this schedule. So I refuse to use alarm clocks. I know this might sound a little ridiculous. I like to have 4 to 6 hours to myself in the morning to just do whatever I want to do. And sometimes I'll be working, but I like to have that time to like go for a hike, meditate, breath work, or just like chill in my own essence or do my own readings for myself or whatever it is. So I essentially block off from like 12 to 6 p.m. is my work time. So whether I'm working with clients or posting content or whatever it is, that's kind of like my hours for work. And then I like to have my mornings to just unfold however they do. I really try to focus my day on creating and just being in some form of creative flow. And that can be creating a new course or a new program. It can be thinking of content ideas to post. Like, I had to really change my perception to have fun with content. Otherwise, it was like a chore. So that skit you were talking about, I did around soul contracts. I was like, I need to like, this needs to be more fun for me. And my inner child would love, like, I always thought I'd be a famous actress when I was little. Like, that was like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be an actress and on the red carpet. And so I'm like, okay, if that's what my inner child wants, how can we bring more of that into the day to like make it fun and stay in this creative flow? And so I really try to like prioritize the things that I love to do that excite me and then schedule blocks of time for the things like admin work that I'm not excited about but have to do in order to have a business.
That is honestly so inspiring. I love that. And I was recently reading a book, and it's called Buy Back Your Time. And he was talking about basically like Oprah's schedule. Like, she literally just works for like 2 hours a day, and the rest is just exactly that, like reading books and having conversations that you want to have, and leisurely sitting on the couch or going into the garden. And honestly, that's like my goal. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have time freedom. I think is super important. And
Yes.
so I feel like for me personally, if I continue leaning into the whispers of the universe, then I will be provided for. I was in a similar situation. It's like looking at the bank account and you're like, where is the mortgage money going to come from? And if you just continue to have faith, and some people can't wrap their heads around that, and for a while I couldn't either. I was like, give me the business plan.
Yeah.
But once you start to get it, then you do truly get it. And I think the universe then continues to provide you with opportunities for expansion, connection, and financial abundance. And it's all a matter of trusting,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, your divine connection to source.
1,000%. There's a lot of like talk around getting paid to exist, getting paid to be me is kind of like that thing that's out there. But like what people don't realize, and this is why I feel so passionate about my work, is that that's a frequency anyone can access. But you do have to become you and you have to express yourself to the world. It's a literal formula that exists. And but they're hard things to do to figure out who you are, really become you and express it. But like, my guides have been showing me over the last year and a half, I've oscillated in and out of that frequency where
Oh, yeah.
like literally getting paid to just be me and do absolutely nothing. And then there's times where I oscillate out of the frequency and I kind of go back into my programming of like, okay, I need to have this, I need to do this, I need to launch this program. And I kind of get carried away because it's a deprogramming of what I've been on for my whole life. But it's also why I'm so passionate about visibility because through the process of visibility is where you discover who you are on a, like a true level. And when you unleash that to the world in whatever way, it doesn't mean everybody has to show up on social media. This can be in your own home. Like it's
Right.
whatever each person. But when you do that, you do get paid to exist. And things just come in like in ways that do not make sense. People will just show up and be like, I have 20 grand. What could you do with that? And I'm like, I have a lot of ideas actually for 20 grand, like, but there's so many things that happen like that that don't make sense when you're in that frequency. And so I think a lot of times people think about get paid to exist or those things like as in manifesting, but it's not. Like manifesting is here to help us on the healing journey. We're
Mhm.
here on a soul level. Our souls come here to heal and liberate ourselves. And visibility is actually the most powerful way to do that because it's the thing all of us healers and star seeds and light workers are the most afraid of.
Oh my gosh, you totally gave me chills when you said that because I think for me, that's the thing that right now I'm overcoming. Do you know what I mean? It is so easy for me to step in front of a classroom of students and totally just be my goofy self, but it is so much harder to be vulnerable and authentic in front of the world, in front of peers, in front of, do you know what I mean? Like letting your guard down in front of, like you said, like your family. Like, who are you? I don't even recognize you anymore. And so it's willing to be able to truly be yourself. And I just do believe that the people that are meant to be in your life will continue to be in your life, and you will attract the right people in your life. And if there are lessons that you have to overcome, then
Yeah.
it will just happen. And sometimes it's harder than other times, but in the end, you have to believe and trust that everything happens for a reason.
Totally. It really does. It's, the path of like becoming your authentic self, it will clear out anyone who's not meant for you. Like this last year and a half, amazing things happened, but there were also difficult things where I lost a lot of my friendships and not for any reason. Like nothing happened. We just vibrated out of each other's lives because the version of me that connected with them was codependent, people pleaser, hiding. Like the real me, we didn't vibe. Um,
Mm.
and honestly, some people on social media know me better than the people in my real life. So it's a very interesting thing that happens. But yeah, showing up on social media it's so normal that it's difficult because in real life we can shapeshift to what we need to be when we're in front of someone. We can respond to those social cues, right? You start to learn to shapeshift. And then also like when the camera goes up and it's just reflecting back to you who you are, and you're just like, the words don't come. All of a sudden you're like, what am I talking about? And then you're putting it out there into the abyss, like, who's gonna see this? How are they gonna see it?
Yeah,
Social media is beautiful and it's like it's here to help light workers. Like it is literally all this technology, the AI, it's here to assist us in ascending this planet and healing ourselves. But it doesn't make it any less difficult to like post yourself out there in that way, especially it's like goes against all of our natural instincts.
100%. Because it's like standing on the top of a building naked and you're like, look at me, everybody, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And by the way, I'm a psychic.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell you things about yourself,
Totally.
which is really awesome. Are you able to turn spirit on and off?
Yes and no. Like if spirit has a message, it's coming, like
Mm.
regardless. So there's been times where a message will, and I'm just like, I don't want to right now. Like I don't feel like it, or whatever's going on in me that I don't want to connect. I can turn it off intentionally with getting information for other people.
Mm.
But as
Yeah.
far as like if spirit has a message or is connecting something, that's coming through regardless.
Yeah, for you. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I know. Spirit, I feel like sometimes comes at like the most inopportune time. Like I'll be in the middle of like a conversation with my husband discussing something important, and I don't know about you, but like I get a ringing in my ear, and then I'm just like, shh, quiet, be quiet. I'm listening to Spirit, And he's just like, okay, whatever. Like,
For
so
you.
it's really quite funny.
Yeah, it comes in. Yeah, there's no like, but I think it also comes in like that way. I mean, at least for me, because it's like part of my brain is occupied, so it's able to flow through really easy.
Yes.
Like hiking, doing the dishes, painting, things where like a part of my brain is paying attention to something else, like that's when it flows so much. And that's also when I'm like, oh, okay, you've been trying to reach me and I've been like tuning out in some way. Or just couldn't get to that vibration to like allow it to come in. So I know what you mean when it comes, and you're just like, now is not the time.
Yeah, I totally get that. Driving is another one. Do you know what I mean? Because you're occupied.
Yeah, totally. And then
So
you like, capture a voice note so you don't forget the channel after.
yeah, 100%. 100%. One other thing that I wanted to ask you is I saw that you had posted at one point destruction is part of the ascension process. Would you
Yeah.
mind speaking to that?
Totally. So I always say to remember who we are, we have to forget all that we've become. And there is a full destruction of your identity in your life in the ascension process. And it doesn't always have to be dramatic. It does not have to be like my story was. I had avoided my messages for a very long time, which is why my story came to where it did. But you have to totally deconstruct everything you know about life, everything that you have understood up until this point, all of the obligations, the way we feel obligated to even stay connected to family. Like that kept me stuck for a really long time of like, no, you have to, like, family comes first and blood is blood and all of those things. And it's like, well, no, those people are super toxic. So it's like deconstructing literally everything you know about life and who you are. And then in that process, I don't know if rock bottom's the right word, but when you get to that like bottom where like nothing makes sense anymore, that's when everything can start to make sense in the way that it's meant to.
100% understand that. And I think sometimes we have to hit the bottom in order for us to find our inner strength and rise again. Because if we keep functioning out of comfortability,
Yeah.
we're never going to change because our brains want to keep us safe, and safe is the known.
Yeah.
But in the uncomfortableness is where we grow. So
Totally.
we have to be willing to be uncomfortable in order to grow and change. And then another motto that I like to live by is just do it with 20 seconds of courage.
Oh, I love that.
Whatever is holding you back, just do it. Give yourself 20 seconds and just do it. And the amazing opportunities that can come your way. You're an example. You're a perfect example. You listened and you did it. And then look what happened.
Right. And it can change so fast. Like I always say to people too, like if you're at rock bottom, it's actually, I know it sucks, but it's the best place you can be because rock bottom isn't, you don't stay there, it's your launch pad.
Yeah.
Everything had to be pulled away. So if you're there, it's like just sit there for a second, as uncomfortable as it is, because it's the only way you can get launched out of it. And then the other thing that I always say to people is when you align to your path, you get your time back. Like it collapses timelines in a way you get your time back. So the business you thought would take 10 years, it'll take a month to get to where you thought it was going to take. The relationship, like whatever it is in each person's life, you get your time back when you're in alignment. So, yeah, 20 seconds of courage. Like if you can just do that thing and you get aligned, you get your time back. I think that's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned jumping the timelines also, because when you do become more aligned, your timelines can shift and accelerate.
Rapidly.
And that's an amazing thing because, again, you're just growing and expanding. And
Yeah.
also, when you are on the bottom, there is no other way but to go up. You have no choice. So I love that.
Yeah, truly.
Tell me a little bit about where we can find you, where you share your offerings.
Yeah. So my website is quantumchris.com. And then I'm on Instagram. It is Kris, Shea, SHEA 8. And then on TikTok, it is Kristen Shea 8. All my handles were like taken for to have like one solid handle across all platforms. So I'm still working on that. I've been like messaging the people like, can I have this? Can I have this handle?
Yes, ask. Why not, right? I'll put all your links in the show notes in case everyone wants to follow you because they should. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me and share your life experiences. I feel like we have such similar paths as far as like getting to the point where you were like, all right, I've heard you. I'm going to listen. I'm just going to do it. So it's really actually inspirational for me to be able to hear someone else's story and see the true authenticity and beauty that you possess. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on my show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad you reached out and that we got connected. I feel like we have so much like synergistically in common, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. Thank you.
You're welcome.